Trip down memory lane, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. What a great show that was. It started off originally, well, I first saw it with the cartoon. And to be honest with you, I thought the cartoon was absolutely brilliant. Apparently it was one of the last real 80s cartoons there were, even though it came out in the very, very early 90s. Anyway, that led to a movie which was a very successful movie at the time, highly anticipated by most people, including myself, and I must say the animatronics were pretty much state-of-the-art for the time, done by Jim Henson's workshop, and I loved the show, I loved the film. It gave rise to Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, which, yet again, was... Alright, the jokes were a bit cornier, a little bit more obvious, but I'll be honest with you, I quite like that film too. It wasn't too bad. Turtles 3, I'm not going to talk about. And Turtles has regained popularity so much so that we have now a CGI alternative to the other movies, and I must say it takes off from where the last three left off, and it's quite a good film. If you haven't seen it, don't be put off by it being CGI. I can definitely recommend it. If you're a Turtles fan or you were, give it a watch.
I'm sorry I failed. That come along, and as a kid, a lot of these are really sought after. You couldn't wait to get your hands on any of these. I mean, you can see them all up here now. They're mixed up with the latest cartoons ones, which are on the far left here. Up here, they're the latest cartoon figures. They're slightly more articulate than the old ones, but in all fairness, I had no problems with the others. They were brilliant. And you can see the latest Shredder at the back there next to the old one. And as I said, there's even the movie figures, who I've got to say, just take a look at Mike's face. I find that disturbing on so many levels. But yeah, the toys were brilliant. And you've got to bear in mind, we were playing with Transformers, square, blocky things which were inarticulate, and you couldn't really pose that well. And then some kid comes along with these. Struth, yeah. They were mega popular. I remember queuing outside stores for hours to get hold of some of these, only to be let down when I got there because they were all sold out. And here's what started it all off really, the original graphic novels written by Kevin Eastman and Peter Lloyd or Lard, I think it is along that line. I think it was a couple of Irish brothers or writers. And this is what started off. Now as you can see, there's a distinct contrast between them and the cartoon ones. Primarily this is how they initially had them coming out, as all same coloured bandanas, but for the cartoon and for the children's sake, they thought they'd obviously differentiate them by giving them different coloured bandanas and personas. Now, this is how they initially turned out in the comics. We couldn't initially turn out. This is how they did. This is the perception which they was given. Now, it's interesting to note that Rocksteady and Bebop weren't owned by Eastman and Lloyd, so that's why they were never in the movie. Shredder was, not even Krang was owned by them, so that's why they were never initially in any of the films. But that was a cartoon creation, and they ended up in the comic books too. But yeah, I loved the comic books too. You can't argue, and they're great stories. As I said, it was inspired by the original writers, but obviously took its own turn on it to be more child-friendly. Alright, who can forget the Turtles, eh? This is all started it off. The first game to come out on the NES, ridiculously hard, to be honest with you. And if you had a friend, tough, because he can't play it with you because it's one player. Which defeats the purpose of the Turtles, really, doesn't it? There's four of you. I mean, you can switch between any of them at any given time. But to be honest with you, Leonardo and Donatello are the only two worth using. But this game, I'm sorry, is just so hard. Many hours I have spent on this game just to die. Anyway, that's what started it, and there's been many Turtle games since then. I'm just going to show you a few of them. Now, as we know, after the original Turtle game that came out, they released the Turtle arcade game. You see, it only cost me £3. Just supposedly a recreation of the arcade game on the NES. Not a bad attempt, this game for the time, considering the limitations of the NES. I kind of liked it, and it was two-player. And after that, there's been so many variations of the Turtle game, it's unbelievable. One of the better ones that was released on home consoles was Turtles in Time. Excellent game on the SNES. I think it's brilliant. You can get the actual emulated version now on the Xbox and PS2. Now, this is the first game that started off all new craze of it. This is to coincide with the new cartoon that come out. As you can see, it's changed quite a lot, the Turtles, I suppose, considering they've evolved, as it were. After that, they released Battle Nexus 2, which had an emulated version of the arcade game which was released on the NES. Obviously this one is 4-player, which is kind of nice, so that was a very good game. I bought it primarily to recreate the arcade game. And after that we had Turtles Mutant Nightmare 3, and on this one is an emulated version of Turtles in Time. And this is 4-player, unlike the SNES one, which was only 2, so that's great. One really doggy one I will say to steer clear of if possible is Turtles Mutant Melee. Keep away from that game. And as we know, there's been other variations on handhelds, and the latest one, to coincide with the CGI film I showed you, is this. Unfortunately, all the copies of this game, as far as I know, on all home consoles are only 1-player, which is a damn shame. That's the whole point in Turtles. There's 4 of them. There we go. But I'm not going to show you any of those games. I'm going to show you a couple which I think time forgot. Turtles Tournament Fighters. It's quite hard to come by this one now. Now, I'd like to show you this game for you, those of you who haven't seen it. I think it's not bad, but I'll let you be the judge of that. And another forgotten one, the Hyperstone Heist on the Mega Drive. The Mega Drive's variation of Turtles in Time, I think, but I think equally as good game. So, I suppose you ought to crack on and get on to business. Thing I will say, as regards to Turtle films, may I just re-emphasise, don't ever see Turtles 3. I promise you, if you haven't seen it, don't bother. Well, let's crack on with the games then, shall we? Well, can you hear music? Better go and check that.